Back again with another away days. Oh yeah, lads, come on.
I get those goosebumps every time.
I just have to get the big fella off the bench.
Could this be their last chance now? In it comes, Monster to the back! He scored! Harry Monster scored!
I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too numb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time. I need that hind, throw that to the side, I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around, when you throw that to the side, I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. 713 through the 281, yeah, I'm riding. Why they only outside? Slipping low-key and high, yeah. It's my rider. I get those goosebumps every time you come around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those times, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time. I need the hind.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to Loaded Mag NUFC Away Days. We are back again, finally, for another match preview. International break out the way. Thank God for that. And we go again. And I cannot wait to start talking about the match tonight. And you'll realize that I'm on my lonesome. Where the hell is Chris Hall? I don't know, but I know he's on his way. So he'll be here any second now, and he'll just pop up on the screen without even a worry in the world. But look, welcome to everyone in the chat. Great to have you with us on this fine Wednesday evening. And I just want to say, first and foremost, a fantastic show last night, if you didn't catch it, with Andy Sixsmith, the Northeast Premier League correspondent. Great to have his views on the voting and everything related to that. A really interesting chat with that as well. Great to see so many in the chat tonight that were there last night too, and some that weren't. Like so Jason Scott, great to have you with us. Our resident spanner, Tom Dixon, hope you're well. Craig Lee, I know you weren't there live, but I saw you in the comments afterwards. Great to see you too. Gary V, as always, and lots of others, and a few of the Chelsea ones in the chat backing up Charlie. So giving him some support. So great to see as well. You guys in the chat. We will get started in just a second, but one thing I just wanted to mention to the Newcastle fans, a great talking with the club this evening at St James's Park. Really good event where Eddie Howe was present, talking about lots and lots of different topics. I'm sure it will all come out at some point, but great to be a part of that. Darren Eels was there. Matthew Raisbeck led the show and was fantastic. And of course, the old Mackham Slayer was in the house too, Shola Amiobi. So great to have him on with us and being a part of it as a fan watching in. So a great event all round and fantastic stuff. Yes, he is still out delivering his Avon. I don't know where he is, but look, he promised me he would be back in just a minute, so no doubt he will as well. If you need to stand in while you're waiting, Blaze, I'm always here. Yeah, well, have a word with him. We might need you to stand in if he's any longer. But look, whilst we're here, let's bring on the guest, because as you all know that watch this channel, we don't do away days. It's not the same if we don't have the opposition's view. And just as I'm about to bring Charlie in, like magic, he appears. There we go. What time do you call this, man?
Mate, I'm so sorry. Do you know what? It's just been bedlam in our house. And it all happened at about 2 minutes to 8, which is typical. So yeah, apologies for that. How are you, mate? How are you?
No, not too bad. We had people saying that you were still out delivering Avon. I mentioned you were doing your hair. We didn't know what was going on. But look, the main thing is that you're here. Great to have you with us. Tag teaming tonight. and talk about all things Newcastle United, buzzing that we're back now to proper football.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was just in the midst of inviting our fantastic guest on. So we've got new guest making his debut on Loaded Mag NUFC, and he's from the Blue Brother Chelsea YouTube channel. And his name is Charlie. And if you've watched Side TV, you would have seen myself and Charlie battling it out, talking about all things Premier League football on there. But let's get him in. Welcome in, Charlie. How you doing, fella?
Nah, mate, good. Pleasure to be here, boys. Looking forward to getting stuck into it. Should be good fun. Should be a decent game this weekend as well. Yeah, as I said, just glad that all that crap football's out of the way and we can focus on the good stuff.
Yes,
1,000,000%.
It is the good stuff. And I tell you what, it's going to be a hell of a game. That is for sure. Just housekeeping very, very quickly. Now that we've got Charlie on, if you haven't already, click the likes and subscribe to the channel. And make sure whilst you're there, you're subscribing to @Blue Brothers CFC as well, and support Charlie and his channel as well. But thank you everyone for your support for Loaded Mag NUFC. If you haven't clicked the likes now, we've got nearly 100 already in the chat. Click the like button right now and come and show your support for Loaded Mag NUFC. All the algorithms, all the boring stuff, but it helps the channel grow, and that's the important stuff. But Charlie, this has been very, very interesting. So yesterday we had a lot of talk about a particular topic that's been quite hot for Newcastle United in some way, shape or form. And I think a thank you is in order, because you were one of the great 8 that voted in support of the affiliated clubs being able to loan and swap players. So I'll give you a virtual handshake there or a fist bump, because you're one of us. What did you make of that? Were you aware? What did you make of that? The fact that you kind of sided with Man City and Newcastle United and a number of other teams in backing that deal not going through.
Well, it's no surprise to see sort of big teams looking out for their own interests. We obviously multi-club model with Strasbourg and stuff. We're going to expand, and we want other teams. We're going to be wanting to able to, interchange players like that. Man City group as well. So yeah, no, I'm not surprised. We're looking out for ourselves. Also Sheffield United, who are Arab backed as well. That's getting themselves in there. So it's a little bit of people looking out for their own interests. I'm not surprised. And to be honest, I don't even think it's a big deal. Like, players moving between clubs, it's no big deal at all. Like, do you know what I mean? Like all the stuff is done that should be done. Obviously, a lot of things are coming out now from years gone by, but generally speaking, like, it is quite difficult to get something through these days with like not through legit ways. So yeah, I really don't think it's a big deal. Like, why does it matter? Everyone was criticizing the Saudi market in the summer. We got hammered for it. I remember Gary Neville being very prominent on his thoughts about us needing to be investigated. And then suddenly, when other teams were coming in, when other Saudi teams were coming in for their clubs, unwanted players, suddenly it was all right. So I think there's a lot of hypocrisy. There's a lot of double standards, and probably there's a bit of jealousy from other teams as well. So yeah, mate, to be honest, I'm fine with it. I don't have an issue with it. I don't know why such a big deal's been made about it, to be honest.
I agree. But I think, and I don't get your opinion on this, Chris, because we talked about this in depth last night, but I don't think we talked about it from a perspective of what Charlie said, really, about the fact that it could be jealousy, that they just don't like what some of these big clubs, Chelsea, Man City, Newcastle United, are doing at the moment. So we hadn't really talked about it from that perspective. But Charlie's got a great point, hasn't he?
No, absolutely. And another point Charlie made, which I really liked, and again, we maybe briefly touched on it, but not in great detail, was when he said that it's not a big deal. Because, we were speculating, weren't we, saying, we brought up Charlie, we brought up all the different PIF-owned clubs, that players that we could sign. But it could be that we get to the end of the window and it's all been for nothing. And we go, we didn't sign anyone. Because there's no guarantee. We said, that it needs to be the right player with the right attitude. They've got to be able to fit into the squad. Obviously, they're going to be coming in for 5 to 6 months maximum. So really, you don't want to end up with a player who, after a few weeks, you think, "Ooh, he's unsettling the squad. He's not going to contribute. He's not doing what we need him to do. Maybe not the right person to bring in." And if it upsets the dynamic in the behind the scenes, or in the changing room or the dressing room, it's not good. So it ultimately, yes, it's exciting because it leaves open a door that was potentially going to shut, but equally, it's also something that may not even come to fruition. And let's not forget, this ruling not passing leaves the door open for all the other clubs. Yes, we are Saudi owned, and yes, we do have links to PIF, obviously, because we're owned by PIF partially, but it still allows other clubs to go out and loan these Saudi Arabian players, because ultimately Saudi Arabia will probably want to try and link themselves to the Premier League, because they know the Premier League's the biggest in the world, and the more of their players that move over back to the Premier League, it will draw interest. Because obviously when they're playing in these new clubs, they'll go, "Oh, this is X player from X club in the Saudi league," and then people will then follow the Saudi league because they brought this new player in. But yeah, I do think it could be a bit of a storm in the teacup, and I think some clubs are trying to maybe get overexcited about it when really it's not that big a deal. But I do understand why some clubs are unhappy about it, because it does look like it is going to benefit the likes of Newcastle and possibly Sheffield United, who are Saudi Arabian owned. But let's be honest, everybody's got a free ride at it, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that's a more than fair assessment of it. But look, it'll be interesting to see what we actually do, whether we do sign players or not. I think some journalists have been very, very quick to kind of like put the thumb down on certain players. I woke up to Ben Jacobs on TalkSport again this morning, saying that Ruben Neves isn't moving to Newcastle United. They're talking like Ruben Neves is the only centre midfielder Newcastle actually want. And it's just not the case. It's like, in my mind, and I think we said it last night, I don't know if you agree with this, Charlie, but we were like saying, well, okay, well, they're so heads up on Ruben Neves. All right, that's fine. We'll just go and get Frank Kessie. Or we'll just go and pick up Fabinho. Like, we're not going to do that, but they're so heads up on Ruben Neves. It's like he's been held up as this god now that like we're desperate to get, but there are plenty of other players out there. And to be fair, you boys have kind of proven it, that when you want a player and there's a player out there, you can go and get them. And that kind of leads me to my next point, because you have spent a lot of money.
Have we? It must be confusing us with someone else.
I wish I was. What over £1 billion now? Over the course of what we at now?
3 windows.
3 windows. I was giving you an extra window there. 3 windows, £1 billion. Is there pressure on you now to deliver, now that you've spent all that money?
Firstly, I would say there's always pressure on Chelsea, whether you spent money or whether you haven't. It's just the part of the territory. It's part of the job. It's the club. It's the history. It's basically what it is. When you're at a big club, there's always pressure. And then, of course, on top of that, when you spent a lot of money, the pressure ramps up again. What I would say quickly to slightly defend ourselves here is that the £1 billion figure gets banded about, but that isn't all on first team players. We have spent hefty chunks of money on players like Angelo, like David Washington, like Andre Santos, like Cesare Casadei, like guys that might not even play for the club. So like it's not all for the first team. But obviously, the £1 billion figure is the one that the media like to go with. Like sort of rival fans will beat us with that stick if we're doing crap. But in terms of the pressure with the money, yeah, absolutely. There's pressure in terms of this is a new Chelsea. We're not doing as well as people expect us to do. Perhaps we're not doing as well as we should be. But I always say to that, like people say, oh, standards have dropped at the club. The standards have never dropped to me at Chelsea. Like the standards have always been what they were since Roman Abramovich came in, which were to get the sign the best players, win the major trophies, and that's still the same thing right now. It's just like people aren't prepared to accept that we aren't in a position right now to be hitting the standards we've set for ourselves, and we are in the process of trying to get back to a position where we can hit those standards. And yes, the pressure's absolutely on, but at the same time, we have to realize that we need to move out of this cycle of, the default reaction to not doing so well is to just sack the manager off and start again. We've already started again this process because Graham Potter turned out to be the wrong guy. So we've got Pochettino in charge. I think with a group of young players, this is kind of the perfect manager. And people hate it, but you have to be given time, because you don't just build something when you've got as many young players as we do, virtually a whole new starting 11, and inexperienced players. It's going to take time. It's going to be ups and downs. But look, I think we are seeing signs of improvement, in terms of that. Certainly the last couple of games have been really positive. I think we've shown this season we can go toe to toe with the best sides in the league. It's just about us finding a level of consistency, being able to put the smaller sides away. But there's going to be ups and downs. But I think as a Chelsea fan, am I pleased that we're sitting 10th in the table? No, I'm not. But can I see progress? Can I see the direction that we're looking to head in? Can I see young players improving? Yes, I can see all those things. So it's about, as a fan, it's about being patient, and it's about backing the process. But at the same time, I need to also see something to back. And right now, there's stuff to back, and it's not got to a point where I'm like, oh, this is unbackable. Something needs to change. There has to be a realization that, there's a reason why that hiring and firing thing doesn't work in football anymore. And, it's not helpful when you've got old players that used to be at the club coming out saying they don't recognize it. Chelsea you have to win now. Those sort of things aren't helpful, because the landscape's changed since then. So when you've got ex-players doing interviews like that, I get it, they don't recognize it because it's different to when they were there, but it's kind of irrelevant. So yeah, I guess short answer for that question, mate, is yes, there is pressure, but there's always pressure at Chelsea.
No, and that's a more than fair assessment. You guys have been able to build and add that pressure and be able to live with it, because as we said when we spoke earlier on your channel, you've gone and you've won the lot. And when you've won the lot more than once, you've proven that you can handle that pressure. So the fans, certainly from your perspective, are in a positive position with that. But just thinking about Pochettino just for a second. Mauricio Pochettino's come in to you guys. Now, the big question is for him is that can he withstand the pressure? Because in the Premier League, he played lovely football. He played attractive football under Tottenham, but never got the job done. Now, he's gone and won trophies at PSG. Fine. There's not many managers that haven't in recent years that have gone there. But can he be the catalyst? Can he be the guy that takes Chelsea and changes that round under new ownership? Because let's face it, since you've had that new ownership, you haven't been able to get back to the levels that you were at before there. Is he the guy, in your opinion, that can take you to that next phase?
I hope so. But in reality, the honest answer is I don't know, because there's still so many variables at the club. But what I do think is that I don't think we could have a better manager in place for where we're at right now. Am I saying that Pochettino is going to win titles for us? He could do, but I don't really know. He might not be the guy. But I think for where we are right now in this phase of the project, with all the young players that have come in, we need to develop them and whatnot. I don't think we could have a better person in charge. You only have to look at the kind of the style of football he plays, his record with developing young players and making them better. You're already seeing the impact that he's having on some of the youngsters. Cole Palmer's been exceptional since he's come in. Mykhailo Mudryk is starting to show signs of form. Even for a more experienced player like Raheem Sterling, he was quite poor last season. He's now starting to sort of find his way again. Nicholas Jackson is getting amongst the goals. We're starting to see improvements. Marc Correa, who most Chelsea fans wanted out in the summer, is now playing some brilliant football. Malagusto's come in and done well. There are a lot of positives this season, for sure. And look, I'd love to sit here and say that Pochettino is going to be the guy that wins us titles. But the honest answer is I don't know if he's going to be that guy. He needs to prove that as well. He's not necessarily been a serial winner where he's been. Obviously, I don't want to discredit trophies at PSG, but most managers that go there do win trophies. He did very good work at Spurs. Obviously, you're not going to really win trophies at Southampton or Espanyol. So, but look, I think he a trophy this season would be fantastic. But I guess in the long run, it's a really difficult question to answer. I absolutely want him to be the guy that does that. But there's also a part of me that feels maybe he's similar to Eddie Howe with you boys. He might be the guy that, takes it so far when then someone else needs to come in and kind of push on and finish the job off more. But I absolutely want him to be the guy.
Yeah, definitely. What are your thoughts on Pochettino, Chris? Now we're kind of focused on Chelsea talk because we play them at the weekend. How would you assess his start to life at Chelsea? And I'll ask you the same question, really. Like, in your mind, from an outsider as a Newcastle fan, do you expect Pochettino to deliver them a trophy and do what he couldn't do at Tottenham?
Yeah, it's a funny one, this, because I remember, back in the day when we first got the takeover, Mauricio Pochettino was a name that was mentioned, and I was really excited by that. So I can't really change my view on Mauricio Pochettino because I think he's a really good manager. Did a fantastic job at Southampton, then went on to do an even better job at Tottenham. I think the PSG job probably does him a bit of a disservice because I think that was always a bit of a poison chalice. So I think he was on a hard to nothing, really. I know he was an ex-player there and had a really successful career at PSG, but I always felt he was on a hard to nothing, and there was a lot of big personalities there. So when he got the Chelsea job, I was a bit jealous, really, because I thought, he's a proper manager. He's someone who can come in and really make a difference. And I think his start to life at Chelsea was difficult. I think he took over the reins from Graham Potter, who, Chelsea kind of, put all their eggs in one basket on. Didn't pan out. I do rate Graham Potter. I think Graham Potter's a decent manager, but I think it was always going to be difficult for any manager to try and manage that dressing room because it felt like there was a lot of big personalities in there. There was a lot of players in there who maybe didn't have a future at Chelsea or didn't see their future at Chelsea. Charlie may correct me on that, but I think now, which is worrying, and it's a bit annoying because, having watched them played against Tottenham and having watched them played against City, they seem to be coming to life a little bit. And it's just like, you could argue it's possibly one of the worst times to play Chelsea. So I am a little bit annoyed about that because if we played Chelsea a couple of months ago, I'd have been like, right, okay, no problem. We'll turn up, and I'd really fancy us to get the win. I'm not saying I don't fancy us to win, but with all our injuries, with all, I've got my violin out here, by the way, Charlie, but I feel like it's just not a good time to be playing Chelsea. And because of the caliber of Pochettino and, what he's done previously, I do think he can turn the tide. And all of a sudden, we, give it, 12, 18 months, we could be looking at a Chelsea side who are rejuvenated because I think he's going to work with these current players. Charlie's listed them all there, who've really come in. I think having Reece James back's a really big plus. Maybe not. They may look at Pochettino may look at like a more concrete number one. I don't know. Some people really like Robert Sanchez. Some people aren't as keen. But I think if you give Pochettino 2 or 3 years in this job, I think you could start seeing some real results, and I think he could actually turn the ship around. And if Todd Bowley maybe takes a step back and just goes, tell you what, I'll let the manager make all these decisions and let the manager decide who comes in, who stays, who goes. I think if Pochettino gets a real grip on the team, he could make them, top four regulars again. And Charlie may be right. It may be that, Pochettino will do a job and then he'll move on. Or it could be that Pochettino has finally found his place and he can kind of get back to the Tottenham days, but maybe go one step further with Chelsea and, win them a couple of trophies. And then, before we know what it's like, lads, after 2, 3, 4 trophies, all of a sudden you're a legend of the club. And Chelsea have got the money. They've got in my opinion, they've got the manager and they've got the infrastructure there. I was at Stamford Bridge a few weeks back and I was really impressed with it. Fantastic stadium. So they've got everything there. And I do think Mauricio Pochettino could do really good things at Chelsea.
I think this is a big move for him personally. I think he has to be successful at Chelsea for himself, to be really considered as one of those top managers, because he plays the right football that makes you want to consider him a top manager. But he's got to put that trophy on the table, and one where it's not kind of a given like it is sort of with PSG in France, that if you have a decent run in the season, you are going to pick up a trophy. Here, you have to earn it in the Premier League because you're playing against some of the world's best week in, week out. And if he can do that at Chelsea, then he's proven himself on the top table, that's for sure. But it's an interesting one to keep an eye out. Another player that I just wanted to talk about before we move on, because there's another topic I want to discuss. Cole Palmer. You boys nabbed him away from Man City. 40 million, I believe it was. Hit the ground running at Chelsea, playing some really good stuff. Just been called up for England. Can you see him being sort of your big future under Pochettino? And how good is he from a Chelsea perspective?
No, he's been brilliant. I mean, I'll be honest, mate. When the links first came out, because I remember a lot of Chelsea fans getting excited because Fabrizio was saying, Chelsea are going to sign an important attacker in the next few days, and everyone was thinking, oh, Musiala, or it could be, it could be someone. And then it comes out as Cole Palmer, and it's almost feels like a little bit of an anticlimax. But having said that, he's come in. He did well at Man City. Look, there's no shame in not making it at Man City when you consider the quality of players they've got. They've got a very good academy as well. You only have to look at the players that have come through their academy and don't go on to make it at Man City. Not making it at Man City is no slight on a player's ability. You have to be the best of the very best of the very best to make it there. So there's no shame in not making it there. I was a little bit mixed on it. I thought, look, I'd seen bits of him. Obviously, scored a goal in the Community Shield. He scored in the Super Cup for Man City this season. He played a few games, a few minutes here and there in the Prem, didn't do an awful lot. I think, almost tried too hard when he was on the pitch because his opportunities were so limited. But he's come to Chelsea and he's been exceptional. I'd be lying if I was sitting here and saying that we expected it, because we absolutely didn't. We knew he was a decent player, but, we weren't sure how long it would take him to settle in, what sort of a player he would be for us. But he hasn't had a bad minute in a Chelsea shirt, and I know this won't last forever. He will go through a run of games like all players do, particularly young players, where he doesn't do particularly well. But right now, it's been exceptional. What I really like about him is, one, his confidence. Two, the fact that he always wants the ball. He never shies away from it. And when he gets on the ball, his first thought is to always make something happen. He's got a great range of passing. And another thing that I think is a little bit underrated about him as well is how many interceptions he makes in the final third, like really important interceptions in crucial areas. So right now, he's gone from the fringes of them, spending 3 years on the fringes of Man City squad, to being one of the poster boys of this new Chelsea project. He's been absolutely brilliant. He thoroughly deserved his England call-up and making his debut on Friday against Malta at Wembley. And yeah, I really think this kid can go to the top. But again, I don't like to put pressure on young players saying they're going to be this or they're going to be that. Let's just enjoy him for what he is right now. I think he's in the perfect situation under the right manager to really push on and develop his game. But he absolutely can go to the top. And right now, he's probably our most important player and probably one of, if not the first name on the team sheet.
He's definitely earned it at the moment. Fantastic performance against Man City, Chris. Is he the real deal, in your opinion, Cole Palmer?
I think potentially he could be, yeah. I mean, I liken him to Phil Foden, but what I like is I get the impression, and Charlie, you'll know more than me, but I get the impression that he was in a similar position to Phil Foden a couple of years ago. And Pep's told him to bide his time, wait for his opportunity. And he's kind of turned around and gone, no, I want to play football. And really, you've got to admire him for that. And he's gone, Pep's probably turned around to him and just said, well, all right, we'll listen to offers. And then obviously Chelsea have come in with that big bid. And you're absolutely right, Charlie. I don't think it's any slant on him, the fact that he hasn't made it at City, because I think at the time, I think Grealish,
Mahrez, Foden, Bernardo Silva, these are top players.
Yeah, and then Foden, he's then got to try and get ahead of him as well. So I think certainly the signs are looking promising. He's a great age, Pete, as we always talk about. So I need to try and get that in there. We haven't said that for a while.
Yeah.
So the world's his oyster, and for me, and I know that picture you've put on of Cole Palmer there, Pete, that was following the penalty, wasn't it? for him to go up and take that penalty the way he did and have that arrogance, because it was arrogance, and some people see arrogance as a negative, but for me it's not. Like, you know, the top elite footballers all have that element of arrogance about them, and that's because they back themselves and they believe in themselves and they know that they're capable of doing what they're doing. And for him to step up against his former club at the age he is and to say, yeah, do you know what, lads, I'll have this, and then bury it and tuck it away the way he did, with the pressure of knowing that Edison's probably faced many penalties from him, and for him to just go, no, it's fine, I'll sort it. I'll rescue the point, don't worry. That's a real positive for me. So I actually think Chelsea have got a player on their hands, and it's very, very exciting because he's got that no fear factor about him. He seems fearless, and to have a player of that ilk, someone who's come through the Man City academy, and someone who can, you know, he's got his first England call up. The signs are looking positive, and I think we said before, was it 40 million, lads?
Yeah,
if
42 and a half.
Yeah, if you were to sell him tomorrow, you're talking at least 60. So you've made money on him already.
Yeah, definitely. We've got so many things to talk about. Things just keep popping up all over the place. And look, we're going to hold on a little bit because we are going to look at the match in a tiny little bit of detail and then come back to some of these topics because we're not quite finished yet. However, I think it's time for some stats.
She say I'm Mr. Roll, smooth, just like a silk, soft and cuddly. Hug me up like a quilt, I'm a statistical lover. No take me fee, no filth with my sexual physique. Ya know me well built, oh me, oh my, well. Can't you tell I'm just like a turtle crawling out of my shell, gal? You captivate my body, put me under a spell with your sit on the fence perfume. I love your sweet smell, you're the only young girl who can ring my bell and I can take rejection. So you tell me go to hell, I'm statastic. Tell me doomtastic, touch me in me back. She say I'm Mr. Romantic, call me statastic. She touch me in my back. She says I'm Doctor.
Charlie's faces that was going on. It was priceless. He's like, what the hell is going on here? But he's back. He's back. 00 Stato, Dr. Doom, the man that sits on the fence. More importantly, Keith Roll. How's your international break going? How are you now? And what stats you got for us this week, mate?
Yeah, well, thanks. I wanted to enjoy the international break a bit more, but England made it more stressful than I thought it was going to be. But hey ho, you know, it's nice to watch football where nothing's riding on it, isn't it? Really, you know.
That's true.
Got loads of stats tonight. Got loads of stats.
Oh, we've lost your volume, Pete.
Sorry, lads, that just a bit muted there. Got loads of head-to-head stats here, manager stats, player stats as well. But what I thought I'd throw in there, as well as the general round-off stats, I've got some injury stats as well, because I wanted to try looking at the current injury situation, because it's been interesting as in terms of what the Premier League is at the minute with all the injuries. So I thought I'd throw them in for something different as well. Head-to-head stats in the Premier League. Newcastle have played Chelsea 56 times. They won 14, drawn 13 and lost 29 games. Head-to-head Premier League record at St James's Park, played 28 games, won 13, drawn 6 and lost 9. So at least there Newcastle have got a good record against Chelsea. Chelsea have scored more goals in this fixture in the Premier League, 84 goals compared to Newcastle's 49. However, Newcastle have scored more goals in this fixture at St James's Park, 35 goals compared to 31 for Chelsea. But Chelsea have got a better defensive record in this fixture compared to Newcastle, 26 clean sheets compared to 11 for Newcastle. Newcastle have only won 3 of the last 16 games as well against Chelsea. 3 wins, 2 draws and 11 defeats. Eddie Howe, Moving on to the managers, his record in games against Chelsea, he's managed 15 games. He's won 5, he's drawn 2, and he's lost 8. And Mauricio Pochettino's record as manager in games against Newcastle, he's managed 13 games, won 7, drawn 1, and lost 5. Moving on to the players, Lewis Miley. He became the youngest player to start a Premier League game for Newcastle and the youngest player to start a game in the Premier League since Ben Woodburn for Liverpool against Stoke in April 2017. Lewis Miley at 17 years and 194 days, whereas Ben Woodburn, he was similar, 17 years and 175 days. So it's good to see Lewis Miley come on and do really well there, getting some game time for Newcastle. Chelsea players, Nicholas Jackson, he's Chelsea's top goal scorer this season with 7 goals in all competitions, and he's really hit some form in his last few games. Raheem Sterling, he's got a really good record against Newcastle. He's scored 9 goals in 19 games against Newcastle. And you were just touching on earlier there, Chelsea's Cole Palmer, another player who's hit some form in recent games. He's been involved in 6 goals in his past 5 appearances, 4 goals and 2 assists, with 4 goals coming in penalty spot as well. So he's quite lethal from the penalty spot there. Moving on to the goalkeepers, Nick Pope, he's got 5 clean sheets this season compared to Robert Sanchez's 3 clean sheets for Chelsea. And Nick Pope, he's managed 1 clean sheet in 8 games he's played against Chelsea, whilst Robert Sanchez, he's managed 2 in 5 whenever he's played against Newcastle. Some general stats, Newcastle have lost 4 of their 12 Premier League games so far this season, with 6 wins and 2 draws. And that's just 1 defeat less than they had for the whole of the 22-23 season, where they only lost 5 games. Chelsea are unbeaten in games they have played against the Big Six this season, with 1 win, 3 draws, and 4 from 4 games. Compared to last season, 4 draws and 6 defeats, and no wins from 10 games against the Big Six. So Chelsea have already had an improvement there against the top sides compared to last season. Last Premier League match against Manchester City was the first time Chelsea had both scored and conceded 4 goals in a league game, going back to March 2008, when they got a 4-4 draw against Tottenham. I think as well that season, on aggregate at least, they got a 4-4 as well against Liverpool. So they were scoring and conceding lots of goals in that time. The last game was the 20th time that Chelsea had went 1-0 down in the Premier League this calendar year. And that's the joint most that a side's conceded the first goal in the Premier League this year, as well as Bournemouth and Crystal Palace. So Chelsea have tied there with Palace and Bournemouth. Chelsea have got a much better away record in the Premier League this season, 3 wins, 1 draw and 1 defeat, compared to the home record where they've only got the 1 win, 3 draws and 3 defeats at Stamford Bridge, which is really surprising. Newcastle have won their past 4 home Premier League games, and they've kept a clean sheet in each of those games. Newcastle haven't won 5 top flight games in a row at St James's without conceding a goal since February 1907. So it really will be something if they win, if they score and win and don't concede on Saturday. Newcastle are yet to lose a Saturday 3 p.m. Premier League kickoff game under Eddie Howe. 12 wins and 6 draws. Brilliant record there. But I will temper this by saying the last side to beat Newcastle in the kickoff time of 3 p.m. on Saturday was Chelsea St James's in October 2021.
No way. That's a belter stat at the end. I love that.
It was Reece James scored twice in that game.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, it was that game. Yeah. Yeah.
And I've rounded off. I've give you some bonus stats tonight because I'm looking at current injuries in Premier League, just as I promised at the start there. Newcastle have got 11 players recently who have been registered injured, and they've had a total of 14 separate injuries this season. This is a league high, which they share currently with Manchester United, 14. And Chelsea aren't far behind as well. They've had 12 players, separate injuries affecting players this season. Newcastle only had 15 injuries across the whole of last season. And Newcastle were the only team across Europe's top 5 leagues where 9 of their outfield players were able to play a minimum of 75% of the full domestic season minutes last season. Hamstring injuries have accounted for the most injuries so far this season in the UK in the Premier League. 42% of soft tissue and muscular injuries. And that's an increase of about 96% for hamstring injuries compared to last year, where across the season, 53% of incidents, and there's been an increase of 26 so far already, more than the during the 22-23 season. Knee with 28 instances, ankle and foot 21 instances. They're the second and third most common types of injuries, and that rounds off the stats.
And Ian 2 trainers off. But great stats as always, Keith. Brilliant stuff, and the injuries update is a great one too.
Yeah, absolutely
important to know. I mean, it just goes to show both clubs. We've talked about it as well, Charlie. Both clubs have really suffered with injuries to big players. We've had the likes of Botman out, Isak out. You've had the likes, of Nkunku out for the majority.
Hasn't kicked a ball for us.
But he's back apparently, isn't he?
Back in team training. Maybe he makes the bench. Hopefully, he makes the bench on Saturday. But yeah, we won't be seeing him start for a while. But that's a massive, massive plus. Yeah. As you say, though, we've had a lot of injuries. I don't want to make excuses, but Reece James has been out for large parts of the season. Chilwell's missing. Chukwuemeka's out. Lavia's out. We've had a lot over the season already. But yeah, I don't want to sound like I'm moaning.
It's all right, Charlie. We've been moaning.
Me personally, I think you should make sure that Nkunku is 100% fit. Just give him another week. Give him another week.
Give him a debut at home rather than an intimidating place like St James's. Yeah,
I think that's a great idea. That's a great idea. I think it makes perfect sense. The fans give him a rapturous applause. It was good at Stamford Bridge. Why not? But let's face it, he's a supremely talented player, and a player we talked about a load of Mag NUFC that we would love to sign. We knew he wouldn't come to Newcastle at our point right now, but he's a supremely talented player, and you guys will feel the benefits of having him back playing regular football, because he will score goals and he will transform the team. There's no doubt about it. So
just in time for the busy run of fixtures coming up, which is ideal, really. I think that's the plus for us, is that we've got a lot of our players coming back from injury just in time for when we're playing like every 3 days, which is a big plus for us. It means we've got a lot more options for rotation, and the bench suddenly looks a lot better than it has the last couple of games.
Definitely, and look, from our perspective, Chris, Keith, we've got a couple of big hitters back, notably our joint top scorer, Alexander Isak, back in training. Been told that he's pretty much dead set on to be fit and starting for the game on Saturday, which is a huge plus for us. Of course, we've got a number of other players back. This man, we were worried. We thought we were going to lose him for a number of weeks with the hamstring at Bournemouth, but it looks like he's recovered from that and he's going to be fit and available. But the downside is that we're going to lose this man for a period of time. Probably not going to see him until the new year. And there's a chance that this man will be back, Sean Longstaff. How important is he to our midfield, Chris?
Oh, he's huge, isn't he? Absolutely huge. I mean, for your benefit, Charlie, we when we got taken over, Sean Longstaff was always seen. I think it's fair to say Sean Longstaff was always seen as like a player who, he's great for the homegrown quota. Born and bred, obviously Newcastle fan. I think we always thought that Sean Longstaff would have a place in the squad, but I don't think we all realised how integral he was. And when Sean Longstaff was out, we noticed particularly a dip in form in Bruno Guimaraes. And as soon as Sean Longstaff came back into the team, I think we all collectively, not just on this channel, but as a fan base, all realised how much of a big part Sean Longstaff has to play in this side. He offers the balance in midfield that we need, and when he's not in that midfield three, I think you see it. You see the difference. Quite often, people will say, it's not about putting your best 11 out. It's about putting the best team out, i.e., not individuals, but putting in players who work well in a team. And Sean Longstaff epitomises that for me. When he's not on the team, I don't think Bruno is as effective as what he normally is, because Sean Longstaff understands his role in the team and that he will fill in gaps for people. He will sacrifice himself in order to allow others to play. And he also has got an absolutely fantastic engine on him. He makes long busting runs into the box, which we've seen over the past few weeks and months. And if he adds that to his game regularly and he can stay fit, Sean Longstaff is a huge, huge player for Newcastle. And I think it's fair to say we all underestimated him. But now we know his true value and we know what he's worth to this team.
Definitely. And hopefully that England call up comes with him continuing to put performances in. I'll be honest, I don't see it coming this season. I really don't think that Sean Longstaff will be considered under a Gareth Southgate regime. But I do think that Gareth Southgate will leave England after the summer's Euros. And I think what you'll find is, and it was really interesting because we're not really talked about him in particular, but I'll put a picture of this man up, Anthony Gordon, who we thought might well be a shoo-in. And obviously they've gone with Cole Palmer, who plays on the other side, and that's absolutely fine. But we thought he was well within with a shout. But then the Scotland talks that they want Anthony Gordon, and Gareth Southgate's told him to hold on because he's imminently going to be available or be up for selection. But I don't think that's going to be under Southgate. I think he's telling him to hold on because after he does his cycle and leaves in the summer, a new manager will want to consider him. And I think someone like Cole Palmer on the right-hand side and Gordon on the left could well be potentially the future of England moving forward, because I think those boys in particular will sidestep the likes of Rashford moving forward. You've got Foden, you've got Grealish. Grealish is 29 years old, so he's kind of moving on now with regards to that. And I just think that there is room there to move forward in. Sterling really should be in with the shout, but probably won't be. But he's getting towards his 30s now. So these young boys will be the future of this country. And it wouldn't be surprising if Cole Palmer and Gordon are within that conversation of a new look England this time next year. But it'd be an interesting one. Interesting to see how it materializes. I've got questions. There's loads of questions. I want to get your opinions on a few topics as well, Charlie. But what I want to do now, more importantly at this stage, is come to the tactics board. And so I want to look at what you think the starting lineup is going to be for Chelsea. So I want you to think about who your first 11 is going to be. And of course, Chris and Keith, you know the score. You've been here before. We will ask you for your lineup, and I will get then Keith to critique it. So I've got your squad here at the bottom. Charlie, what's your 11 going to be? Talk us through your 11 formation. Tell me the players. I'll put them on the screen. Let us know what your
mate. I think it's going to be, well, for me personally, I think it's going to very much be pretty much the same team that played against Man City. I'd have Robert Sanchez in goal. Probably go it'd be a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3. I mean, Gallagher sometimes plays in that 10, or sometimes he just drops a little bit into a 3-man midfield, but it certainly will be a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3, a variation of. But
Hold on 1 second. Let me just sort this out because they ain't done it properly. Always does it right. Okay.
Yeah, Sanchez in goal. Yeah, no, he's done okay so far this season. I think there's a few things he needs to improve on. I still get nervous when he's on the ball at the back, but he's going to be in between the sticks. Reece James will play at right back. Not really too much needs to be said about that. I think the only selection issue that Pochettino's got at the back is whether Levi Colwell comes back, and he missed out with a slight shoulder injury against Man City, and then was pulled out of the England squad as a precaution. He's fit again now. So the choice is: do you play Levi Colwell at left back and leave out Cucurella? Do you replace the Sassy, or do you put Colwell on the bench? And for me, I think the back four's working well. The Sassy's done a lot better than a lot of people thought he would have done. So I would be going with Silva and the Sassy as a centre back pairing, and leaving Colwell on the bench.
Silva on the right or Axel?
It doesn't really matter. I'll probably play him on the left hand side. There is all right, yeah. And then Disassi as well.
Okay.
And then Cucurella at left back.
There we go.
So yeah, that's the back four. I know obviously it's not ideal because the South American boys, as you all know as well, with some South American players, the international break is a joke. Like they played at midnight last night in Rio, and then obviously long haul flight back, and you got a game. You got a game Saturday. It's not optimal, but it will be Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo for me in the middle, with Conor Gallagher as well. And I think it's got a nice balance to it. Like Enzo Fernandez and Caicedo are starting to sort of click and are playing some decent football. Gallagher's been outstanding this season. There's a real nice balance there in terms of.
Is it like this?
It's basically like that. It's almost like Gallagher will play as the most advanced midfielder, whether it's like that or whether he's playing as more of a number 10. He'll be the most advanced midfielder. But the midfield's got a really nice balance to it at the moment. They're all doing really well. I think they all complement each other really well as well. So yeah. That's the three there. And then the front line will be Cole Palmer on the right-hand side.
Okay.
It will be Raheem Sterling on the left. As much as I love Mykhailo Mudryk and I'm a massive fan of him, and I think he's going to be a top player. Even for me, I can't really find a legitimate reason to put him in ahead of Raheem Sterling on his current form. It's kind of just the way it is, unfortunately. And then Nicholas Jackson will lead the line as well, and he's in good goal scoring form.
Okay, cool. There we go.
So that's what I'd go with. I think for Pochettino, the only issue will be does he put Colwell back in and who for? Other than that, I think the team pretty much picks itself at the moment.
Interesting team, that's for sure. Look, we'll match that up with the Newcastle team. So, Chris. What's your starting lineup this time? And look, and I appreciate it's going to be difficult because we just don't know who's fit.
No. Do you know what I will do? I'm gonna break the habit of a lifetime here. I think I might start from the front and work backwards because I think the front three are pretty set. So I think it will be Anthony Gordon on the left.
Okay.
I think it will be. Alexander Isak through the middle, and I think definitely, and I think it'll be Miggy Almiron on the right. Yeah, I think that's the front three. I will then go on to the goalkeeper. So obviously the goalie will be Nick Pope.
Go for it.
I then think it will be Trippier right back.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I'm not going to put him in because I know he's probably not fit and ready and able. But I do think one day, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Eddie Howell just starts Sven Botman. Because we've already heard rumours that he's as long as his he doesn't have swelling after returning to training. I think all of a sudden one day he'll just appear in the team. I'm not suggesting it will be this weekend because I don't think it will be, but the signs sound promising to me. I don't think we'll be waiting too long before we see Sven Botman. So for now, I think it will be Fabian Schär left centre back, and it will be Jamal Lascelles right centre back.
Yeah,
just thought I'd throw that in there about Botman. And then left back will be Dan Burn. No,
Dan Burn?
no, it won't. No, it won't. No, it won't.
I was gonna say,
Yeah, Dan
is
Burn.
Eddie Howe thrown his Houdini tricks out the bag?
No, Charlie.
Yeah.
I'm so used. You know what? It's because I'm so used to constantly going Dan Burn, but I think it might be Lewis Hall. I've been saying that for weeks.
He can't play.
He can't play either.
He can't
Big
play.
He's alone.
Oh, hang on a minute. Right, okay, I'm going to switch that up then. Yeah, do you know what? It's funny, Charlie. For weeks on end, we all kept screaming for Lewis Hall. And we're going, Lewis Hall, put Lewis Hall left back. And I'd always have this thing where I pause on Dan Burn and then go, yeah, go on, throw Dan Burn instead of Dan Burn. But, yeah, so I think that being the case then, someone in the chat said Tino Livramento obviously played in the under-21s at Goodison through the week. So in that case, I think he'll move Trippier to left back. I think he'll put Trippier left back, and I think he'll put Livramento at right back.
Okay. Cool.
Knowing what Charlie's just said about Cole Palmer, I think he'll want Kieran Trippier on Cole Palmer because I think he needs that steady head. He needs someone who's experienced and knows. Whereas with Raheem Sterling, I think maybe Tino Livramento might ask more questions of him rather than Sterling of Livramento, just purely down to pace. Whereas I think Cole Palmer technically could be more of a challenge, which is maybe why he put Trippier left back. In terms of the midfields, left centre mid, I would say Joe Linton.
Okay.
Now, right centre mid, I hope it's Sean Longstaff. Will it be Sean Longstaff? I'll tell you what, let's put Bruno in, the number 6, because I know Bruno will be back. It will either be Sean Longstaff or Joe Willock. I think Eddie Howe will be hoping it's Sean Longstaff. But it could be, do you know what? I'll leave that one to Keith. But for now, Pete, put Sean Longstaff in. Put Sean Longstaff in and see if Keith agrees with me. Obviously, it depends on this, injury that he picked up. I know he played on through the game, but sometimes you don't know whether that's had a lasting effect. But if fit, I think he picks Sean Longstaff.
Yeah. Great shouts. Good team there for sure. Keith, anything to critique from Chris's Newcastle selection?
Yep, I wish we had more options to critique. I wish those 11 players who've been out injured were optional. No, I think keeper picks itself. Go with your strongest lineup and attack as well. Gordon, for sure, the star performer, really. Almiron as well. If Almiron's fit, he goes in. If he's back and fit, he goes in. Back four is probably about as strong as it's going to get there. I think you have to go with Livramento and Trippier in the side. And Lascelles, he's been doing the job as well. And I know there was a bit of a knock as well with Shaw recently, but if Shaw's fit and available, you go with Shaw, and that's as strong as you're going to get. Bruno, it's a relief to see him back in the side, for sure, after that one-game ban and taking that hit, which went disastrously down at Bournemouth. Joe Linton as well in the side, for sure, and Joe Linton himself will be making that long-haul, difficult midnight flight as well, because I think he would have been playing, was he, for Brazil last night as well? So the Longstaff one is an interesting one, and I think, I'm not sure if he's going to be fit, and I agree, it could be Willock. Willock's been coming back into the side, and he's been playing well. If ever there's a question mark on a player's fitness, how Will go with the more conservative choice. He'll goes with what he knows generally. It's rare that he makes a rick and puts someone in who shouldn't be playing, who isn't fit yet. So if there is going to be a difference to that side, I think it will be with Willock in the middle of the park as opposed to Longstaff. But I agree, and I know we've said it on many shows, especially this season, about how Longstaff and how Longstaff in particular complements Bruno and that understanding that they have together. So fingers crossed it's Longstaff, and in the second half, around the 60-minute mark, 65-minute mark, Willock comes on to influence the second stage of the latter stage of the game.
Interesting. Very interesting. I actually, from my perspective, I think this will be the team. I think this will be the team. I think it's from a Newcastle perspective. I think you're absolutely right, Chris, in what you said, because I would have said exactly the same about Trippier and Livramento, switching them over, having the experienced head come up against the kind of the young lad that's just making his step up, to really try and use his experience to control him. Livramento can match Raheem Sterling. Raheem Sterling's a super talented player, but Livramento's already proven this season against top players that he can match them, certainly from a defending point of view. And I think there's a good matchup there on the wings. Jackson's a good player. You don't score 7 goals easily in the Premier League, so that has to be respected. But I do think that the way in which we play, we can potentially look after Jackson quite well. I think the only thing that we've got to worry about is his pace, anything in and behind. That's the only thing that I think we need to seriously be concerned about. But the midfield is going to be a battle. It's going to be a battle. Caicedo, Fernandes, Gallagher has been playing well this season up against Joelinton, Longstaff and Gameres. And I said on your channel, Charlie, that we stood up to a battle against Arsenal at St James's Park, and we went toe-to-toe with Arsenal's midfield, and we effectively won the game because of that. And I just think that that's potentially where the game could be won on Saturday, in that midfield, whoever gets the better of that battle. Reece James is going to cause problems down that side. He's going to overlap. He's going to get forward. But if you're playing a flat back 4, Reece James is going to need to be aware of Anthony Gordon, because Anthony Gordon is just as fast as Reece James. He's a tricky player and he's confident and playing well at the moment. So Reece James will be a threat going forward, but he is going to maybe have to be a little bit more balanced than he normally is, particularly away from home, because Gordon has the ability to nick in and behind. Because what you're going to find is that Reece James is going to find himself here and here through parts, but you're not going to see Gordon matching him here and here. Gordon's going to be here. Joelinton's going to come and sit in here, because it's exactly what we did against Arsenal. If the Trippier will go with Palmer, so if Palmer goes inside and Reece James goes over there, Joelinton will do that job in tracking. And pace and power related, he's probably a good matchup for that. But what he's got to be worried about here is the counter attack, because if the ball gets played out, he's in. And this is how he exploits his players. So it's going to be interesting to see how that one materializes over the course of the game. This one here, it's going to be interesting because you've got a supremely talented centre-back who's aging right now. He's in his 40s, I think he is now. He's an aging centre-back, but hugely experienced, but he lacks pace, and this guy does not. Whereas he has pace, but in my opinion, he makes odd mistakes in games, and he'll always give you an opportunity. But that's just my opinion, and I think Isak could potentially get the better of one or two of these, but it's going to be a tough one. Miguel Almiron against Cucurella, anything could potentially happen in that one. But I do go back to the point. I just think this midfield battle here is going to be the key. But Charlie, what are your thoughts on that? On what we've said?
Yeah, I think it's fair. Like, obviously, a lot of big games are always going to be won in that midfield battle. I think we've got the quality in there to get the better of you. I know football's not done on paper, but our midfield on paper is better, but it doesn't work like that. It's going to be tough. You got workman-like players. You've got players that are going to be up for it. There's aggression in there. There's a lot of South Americans in that midfield. It could be one or two flashpoints. Could get a little bit heated potentially in there. And you've got Argentinians and Brazilians and Ecuadorians and all sorts going on there. So there could be a little bit. It could get a bit feisty. It could get a bit feisty in there. Look, I think Reece James against Gordon's going to be a fascinating one. Anthony Gordon's doing very well. In another life, he could have been lining up for Chelsea. We were linked with him. He could have potentially been. That's going to be I think that's going to be an interesting battle. Cucurella and Almiron on the other side is going to be interesting as well. With Cucurella, you're not going to get the same level of forward output as you are from Reece James. But what you are going to get from Cucurella is he is very good defensively. And he has shown this season that, he has got the better of some good players. He kept Bukayo Saka very, very quiet in the game against Arsenal. He was very good against Man City. Can't remember who played on the right hand side. I think Bernardo Silva and whatnot. He kept those guys very quiet. Phil Foden didn't do an awful lot in that game. So, like, Cucurella has kept big players quiet this season in big games. And hopefully he can continue his good form. So I think, look, the fullback battles are going to be interesting, and the battle in the midfield is going to be interesting. So I think those midfield and, wingers against fullbacks are going to be the two key areas. And I just think it's going to really come down to who takes their chances on the day, which is generally what happens in most football matches. And I guess, like, how each side copes with returning from the international break. So we've got South Americans coming back from long haul flights. We've got Nicholas Jackson, who's been out in Africa. A good thing, Thiago Silva, Disasi, James, Cucurella, Sterling, all those guys haven't gone on international duty. That's a plus. I think there's a few things in play here. And as I was saying on my channel earlier, Pete, I think if Chelsea are going to get a win at St James's Park, given the injuries that Newcastle have got right now, given the sort of the poor form heading into the international break with a couple of defeats, this is going to be the best opportunity in a number of years for us to get a win here. So I think we really got to take advantage of Newcastle's injury issues and their kind of mixed form heading into it. I think if we're going to get a win here, then it has to be this year. We have to take advantage of the situation, because I think strongest 11 against strongest 11, it's a very tough game, and I wouldn't particularly fancy us to come out on top. But I think with a few players missing a little bit of a makeshift back line, I think this is going to be our best chance of getting a win here for sure.
Final thoughts, boys. Keith, Chris, before we move on.
All that I would add is I completely agree with what Charlie said. I know we don't say this all that often, but I do think the fullbacks are going to play a massive part in this game, because even when I was looking at Cucurella, I was thinking, well, you've got Miggy Almiron, who would be causing problems, no doubt, cutting in, as he always does, but then you've got Tino Livramento bombing down. And but again, it could have the impact on Sterling at the other end, because then if Livramento goes all the way forward, can he get back to track Sterling? Because we know Sterling's no slouch. So it's not only the attacking threat, but also the defensive threat. And we've got the same thing with Trippier. I think it's a big game as well for Caicedo. Pete, you were talking about Joe Linton coming in to help out Kieran Trippier when he potentially is up against Reece James and Cole Palmer. Same thing for Caicedo. Caicedo will probably will have one eye on Joe Linton, possibly making those attacking runs, and then also Kieran Trippier. Kieran Trippier, as we know, likes to get forwards, and despite him being on the left, it still wouldn't surprise me if he did, get forward to try and help Anthony Gordon as much as he can. So again, it's a big game for Caicedo, dropping into that right back position, which we know is not his preferred position, but we know he can play there. So that offers another little element as well.
Yeah. See, what you'll see a lot of positions like this. I always talk about the triangles, but you'll see the triangles here, and Trippier won't naturally go down this side, because he'll stay in this position. Because what you'll find is that the ball will go like this into the box. It'll be those kind of in-swingers into the box to try and cause problems from there. It's what he did against Arsenal, and you're inclined to think that it's going to happen again. But this will be interesting, that move down there. But I don't think you'll see it maybe as often. I think he'll want to hold his position, certainly in the early parts, to ensure that he kind of gives himself time to suss out those guys. But you're absolutely right. It's going to be interesting. A discussion. Anything to add, Keith, before we move on?
Yeah, I totally agree with the points that I've raised. There's lots of interesting battles on the pitch on Saturday's game. Certainly the full-backs on both areas of the pitch. I think attacking-wise as well, there's, your front threes for both sides. There's going to be some interesting battles there as well, particularly with Chelsea hitting form just before the international break as well. It's going to be very intriguing to see how both attacking lineups match up in this game.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one for sure. But we'll keep an eye on. We always do when the lineups come out. We keep an eye on, and we look at what we discussed on Loaded Mag and NUFC away days. So let's see how that goes. Tony, how long have you got before you need to go? You got time for a few questions?
Mate, as long as you want, boys. As long as you want.
Oh, okay. Well, we've got a few questions, and then what we want to do is bring in the fixtures for this weekend and have a little bit of a chat about that before we get to predictions. So, look, anything? Well, I'm sure there is because there's loads that have been starred, but anything to throw initially straight at Charlie, question wise?
Yes, we've got 23 star comments. I mean, obviously, some of them are just comments rather than questions. But Tom Dixon asked you, Charlie, what do you think of Sterling so far? Has he done much? I know you alluded a little bit earlier saying that he's done well in recent times under Pochettino, but do you think Sterling, especially, and do you know what? I'm going to add a little added one onto this. Is it Nicholas Jackson or is it Sterling whose position could be up for grabs when Nkuku does come back? I know he predominantly plays as a 10 Nkuku or through the middle as a striker, but do you think you could see maybe Sterling drop out for Nkuku, or do you think it will be through the middle?
I think it's more likely to be through the middle because obviously Nicholas Jackson's going to the African Cup of Nations in January. So Nkunku is probably more than likely gonna start playing through the middle. He spent a lot of time on the left-hand side in pre-season. But again, he's one of those versatile players that his best position is probably as a 10 or a second striker. But he can play left-hand side and he can also play as a number 9. But in terms of Sterling, like I've been quite critical of Raheem Sterling. Like he come to Chelsea obviously a couple summers ago. He didn't hit the ground running. He was quite poor. He's frustrating. Like a lot of players were last season. A lot of players were terrible for Chelsea, but this season he's done better. He's starting to show signs of what the City Sterling was like. He's having more of an influence on big games. He's added some goals to his game again. He's just getting assists and stuff. So it's been a big improvement, but we still need to see more from him on a consistent basis. But I've been pleased with what I've seen from him so far this season. There has been an improvement, but there is still quite a big lack of consistency. He'll put a couple of good games together, but then be quite shit for 2 or 3 games. So we can find a bit more consistency, but he is starting to affect the big games, which is what he was signed for. So he's going in the right direction, but we still need to see more from a player of his quality and what he's achieved in the game. He should be doing more for us, but definitely going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Chris, just 1 second.
No, go on,
I just want to say there's just under 70 likes. Come on, we've had 140, 150 plus in the chat tonight. Just everyone right now. First of all, thanks for watching. On the button as always, Chris. Just click the like. And if you're not already, and we've had another 10 subscribers tonight, so thank you for subscribing to the channel. Just make sure that you just click that like, and it helps with all the algorithms and all the rest of it. So if you're just new in and you didn't hear the first kind of housekeeping, get involved, click the likes. And Blue Brothers, thank you, Charlie, has just said in there, run the likes up, people. You know it makes sense. Let's get it done. And thank you, Ian, said he's just clicked it. Superb stuff. Sorry, Chris. Fire away.
No, not at all, mate. So we've got 2 very similar questions, so I'll pop them both up, but it's basically asking you the same question, Charlie. So Yano asks, are you worried about the Premier League investigation into the club? And also, I think it was Rich Joblin said something similar, but he said, are you worried about the coming down the track for Chelsea, re the points deductions? Like what was your opinion on the Everton outcome? And are you worried from a Chelsea perspective? And maybe I know Pete's just flashed that up there. Maybe how do you see the Man City perspective as well, Charlie?
I think first thing is important to say that all 3 situations are totally different in terms of what's happening. Chelsea haven't actually been charged of anything yet. Their accusations at this point in time. Am I worried about what's coming down the line? Not massively. Because we had the sanctions. People were saying we're going to go out of business. We weren't going to exist as a club anymore. We've come through that. Do I think there could have potentially been some dodgy goings on? Yeah, sure. I think that's perfectly. I think that more than likely could well have happened. Roman was a great guy for us, but let's not pretend he was a saint. He was a bit of a dodgy geezer. I wouldn't be surprised if there were, some dodgy backhand payments to agents and whatnot that should have come out of the club rather than out of his pocket or whatever. But let's not pretend that we're the only club that's done it or we'll be the last club to do it, because every club, I think, pretty much has been doing this. But look, we've not been charged. And what I would say is that when Bowley took over, they set aside 100 million quid to deal with what they described as indiscrepancies from the previous regime when they were doing their due diligence, looking over the books before they took over. They set aside the 100 mil because there were things that they saw which didn't quite make sense. We've already reported ourselves to UEFA over something, and we got an £8 million fine for that. We've self-reported ourselves in this case. And I think there's almost the fact like the self-reporting thing is almost like, well, we've rather than us waiting for you to find this, we've found this, we've highlighted it, we've come to you, and almost a little bit of like, we've self-reported ourselves. So if we have been found guilty because we've been forthright and upcoming about it, maybe, you'll be a little bit more lenient on any potential punishments for us. I know it shouldn't work like that, but we know that's kind of sort of how these things work. So in terms of am I worried? No, I'm not really worried at all. I think we're playing it by the book. None of the people involved at the club during that time are now at the club. This is referring to about 10 years ago now. So look, do I think it could have happened? Absolutely. But until this point in time, we are innocent until proven guilty. We've not been charged with anything, and they are just accusations at the moment. And as I say, compared to the sanctions and what we've been through and whatnot, and the government trying to take us down, this compared to that is hardly anything.
Do you think there's an element as well, maybe, where the press and the media are a little bit sensationalizing things a little bit?
100%.
They're looking at the Man City situation and thinking, well, they've done 115 different serious things there. So if Chelsea, if Everton have been deducted 10, then surely the likes of Man City and Chelsea, it's going to be multiplied. I mean, this sort of situation's happened across Europe a bit as well last season. Like Juventus were deducted 10, 15 points back in Serie A last season, but they challenged theirs. They got it added back, and then at the end of the season, it was deducted again for financial irregularities. And Juventus, as we know, have been a club with a lot of problems over the years, a lot of issues over the years. So Chelsea, there might be something, but it mightn't be as bad as relegation.
No, there'll be no relegation. For me, that just simply isn't the case. But you know what I mean? It's like it's a buzz thing. It gets the clicks, it gets the headlines. But look, as a Chelsea fan, I feel quite confident that the worst case scenario will get a hefty fine, or we might be docked a few points. I don't think it's going to be anything kind of serious, as it were. But again, as I said, we've not been charged with anything. They're just accusations at this point in time.
Yeah. Got to say, Charlie, that was a really impressive answer, that, because as I was going through all the questions, I was like, yeah, he's answered that, he's answered that, he's answered that. Yeah, you were just answering loads and loads of the questions. So it was very comprehensive and honest answer there, Charlie. So I like that. This is more of a Newcastle related question, Charlie, and don't worry about being honest. We're all really nice on loads of Mag. But Alan Thompson asks, and maybe you can answer this from a personal perspective, but also as like a neutral fan's perspective. But he says, do you now consider Newcastle a top 4 contenders year in, year out, or do you think last year was a one-off?
I don't think last year was a one-off, but as I was saying to Pete earlier on my channel, I think last season was very much ahead of schedule. That probably wasn't in the thought process to happen as early as it did. So I look at it and I think, are Newcastle, are they a regular top 4 contenders? I think they're there or thereabouts. I think they're certainly top 6, top 7 on a regular basis. But my one thing would be with Newcastle, if they're really going to push on and consider themselves as regular top 4 contenders, they have to get better squad depth. If the first 11's fit and firing, it's a very good side. But we know that, with games coming thick and fast and whatnot, European competitions, the drop-off at the moment from what you've got in your first 11 to what you've got in the squad and the bench is not good enough to compete and hit the top 4 on a regular basis right now. Can Newcastle get there? Absolutely. Have they got the finances to get there? Absolutely. They've got the fan base. They've got the stadium. It's a great place to go and play football. But right now, for me, I just think you're a little bit short in being deemed regular top 4 contenders, because you don't have the strength in depth in the squad to deal with the amount of games you've got at this point in time. But you'll add more quality players in time. You'll start to spend more money. You'll bring better players will be attracted to come to Newcastle because you've qualified for the Champions League and you've shown you can do it. I just feel for year in, year out, you need a little bit more. The drop off is too big from first 11 to bench at the moment. So that's for me why you're not quite there, but you can absolutely get there.
Just before you go on, because he's not happy, he stomped his feet. Super chat in the house. Ian Toon Trader 199. Thank you very much. You put, Keith, are you available for a motivational talk soon? I think that's after talking about the injuries. The sarcasm came out of it because I think a lot of fans were panicking off the back of that, certainly in the chat. But he's asked that question to you. But thank you for your donation. On away days, we'll do the super chats towards the end of the show. So we'll always acknowledge them. Don't worry about that, Ian Toon Trader. But you've made some great comments tonight, Ian. So thank you for your contribution. Sorry, Chris, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say on the subject of Ian Toon Trader, I've got a bone to pick here because obviously I turned up a little bit late at the start of the show, and Pete has kindly highlighted these points. So Ian Toon Trader, I want to know what's going on, mate, because first of all, he thought for a second he was getting his debut on Loaders because I was turning up a bit late. And then he says, all right, Pete, lad, if you need to stand in while you're waiting for Blaze, I'm here. I mean, Ian Toon Trader, like, just dismissing me after 7 minutes, you know?
What are they like, eh? But we did actually do the old symbol, the old Brandy and Blaze back in business after a couple of weeks. We're back in business.
Yeah, but no, he redeems himself there, Ian, and really, like you say, you know, you said before, Pete, some lovely comments in the chat. Being honest, you lads at Loads of the Minted love the content, so yeah, really appreciate that, Ian Toon Trader. Obviously, I know you're real loyal member of the chat. You're always here for the shows, so yeah, we really do appreciate that. On the subject of giving out a little bit of praise and thank you, Shane Mawson, again, another big fan of the channel. It's Shane Mawson's 40th birthday today, so happy birthday to you, Shane. Thank you as always for tuning in, mate. I was trying to work out what time of day it is in Australia now. I don't know if anyone knows, but I'm pretty sure it's the morning. So I wish him a good day. Hope he has a good rest of the day. So big shout out to Shane there. And then I had my mum in the chat before as well. She texted me, funnily enough, at 8:05 and was like, "Where are you?" You know, it's just Pete on the show. And then she said, "I was worried about where you were, Chris. Poor Pete doing a sterling job though." I like the way she said sterling as well. I like that. I think that was purely accidental, but yeah. So my mum giving you credit there, Pete.
Mama Hall, hope you're well.
Tom Dixon asks you, Charlie, who's been Chelsea's best player so far this season? So if you were to give out a Player of the Season award right now, I know it's early doors, but if you were to, who do you think would get it?
I mean, Cole Palmer's been exceptional, but I'd probably have to give it to Conor Gallagher just because of how good he's been. And I guess like how many people he's shocked as well in terms of because no one expected him to be this good for us. So whilst Cole Palmer's been brilliant, you know, Thiago Silva's been exceptional as well. Probably you'd have to give it to Conor Gallagher, and he thoroughly deserves it because he started every single game under Mauricio Pochettino. He played the most minutes in pre-season, and yeah, he's been absolutely brilliant for us. So at this point in time, I'd give it to Gallagher.
And been captain as well, is that right?
And he's been captain as well, whilst Reece and Chile have been out injured. So yeah, no, he stepped up and he's delivering this season. And so yeah, fair play to him. He absolutely would be Player of the Season so far.
Yeah, I think that's fair, mate. So Tom Dixon asks as well, who is Chelsea's main threat to Newcastle? And who do you, Charlie, from your perspective, think Newcastle's main threat to Chelsea will be on Saturday, given we've just looked at the lineups?
I'd say Alexander Isak and obviously Anthony Gordon, I think, are the two main threats. I think Almiron you can include in there as well, but I think Gordon and Isak have got a bit more about them. And then from a Newcastle perspective, to be worried about for Chelsea, I think probably be Raheem Sterling and Cole Palmer. Reece James is a problem as well. So I'll probably go with those three as sort of main threats to look out for. That right-hand side of James and Palmer is going to be one that, you know, you can keep them quiet. You've got a good chance of getting a decent result.
Yeah. This is an interesting one from Alan Thompson, and it's kind of when we finish the questions, I might have a little check on the odds, and I might throw them in the chat. If anyone has the odds, please do throw them in for the Chelsea win, the Newcastle win, the draw. I'd be interested to see it. But Alan Thompson says, Charlie, with Chelsea being massive favourites, which shocked me a little bit, but with Chelsea being massive favourites for Saturday, do you feel more nervous for the game as Newcastle's injury crisis? You have beaten us more than any club. So I think Alan's he's either playing mind games with you, Charlie, and trying to put you on a false sense of security, or he's saying, Chelsea is surely, they've come into a good vein of form. Newcastle have got a lot of injuries. Like, I know you touched on it very briefly earlier, but are you nervous for the game? Or we're not going to do predictions just yet, but how are you confident? How are you feeling?
I mean, reasonably confident, I think, because of, how he performed in the last 2 games, players coming back from injury, players coming into form. But I don't know if he means like he thinks we're favourites or we're favourites with the bookies or whatever it is. But I don't really look at Chelsea being massive favourites in this game. I might consider us slight favourites given the injury issues that Newcastle have got. But St James's Park is a really tough place to go. The crowd are bang up for it. As always, when Newcastle play, I mean, you've got a very good record at home. So, look, I think Chelsea might be considered slight favourites for this game, but it's by no means like considerable favourites and expecting to get a positive result. I feel confident we can get a positive result, but regardless of the injury crisis, it's still a very tough place to go. So, I would maybe have us down as slight favourites, but I really don't think there's an awful lot in it, despite your injuries.
Yeah, no, I agree. Pete, I know I've just seen you typing away there. I know we've just had Keith has quite kindly put the odds in on the chat, so I'm just gonna whiz them on screen actually, and it kind of backs up exactly what we just said, Charlie. About the fact that it's tight, it's close. So we've got there Newcastle and narrowly favourites, and it is very, very close there, by the way. With a 6-4 at Paddy Power compared with Chelsea's place of 7-4 with Bet365, and the draw is 5-2. And I think that's probably fair because, again, it's one of these games, and you have a few of these throughout the season where it's probably a game that you'd avoid betting on because if Newcastle won, I don't think anyone would be majorly shocked. If Chelsea won, I don't think anyone would be majorly shocked. And then if we drew, everyone would go, "Yeah, I knew it'd be a draw." So it's probably one of those games. It's quite tight. But I can see why you would narrowly favour Chelsea, Charlie, because to be fair, Chelsea really good vein of form. Newcastle missing some key players, so I think that is fair to say. Let's see. There's only a couple more questions, but first, Geordie Tune for Life. A little bit of Charlie love there, which is always nice to see.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, Charlie's been a great guest. Seen him many times on Saeed's channel. So loads of time for that. Thank you for that, Geordie Tune for Life. Where is it? There we go. Here we go. Alan Thompson asks, Charlie, what would be a successful season for you at Chelsea this season?
Well, I said at the start of the season, we need to qualify for the Champions League. So, a Champions League qualification, and if we can get a domestic cup, the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup, then I'd absolutely take that. But yeah, look, Champions League, we need to get there. I think we're 10 points off at the moment. So yeah, it's not insurmountable, but this run of fixtures up to Christmas and the New Year, we need to make sure that the gap doesn't get any bigger than it is. If it goes to like 12, 15 points, I think we can forget it. But if we can be in those spaces, or it's 5, or it's about between 5 and 7, then it's very much doable. So for me, Champions League qualification is a must this season. And then if we can get a domestic cup, then that'll be brilliant as well. But Champions League for me is the big one. We need to get back in there. We spent a lot of money. And I'm not saying we're going to be, finished if we don't qualify in the Champions League, but the heavy spending is going to require that money that comes in from Champions League qualification to help offset it. So we can't afford to be missing out on it for too many years. So yeah, Champions League qualification needs to happen.
Charlie, is this a bigger game for Chelsea than it is Newcastle? Because I'm looking at that table now, and people in the chat, Chris, Keith, let me know what you think about this, because you're looking at where we are right now. We're on 20 points, Newcastle United, 20 points, 7th position. We win that game, and Man U win their game. I think they've got Everton that weekend. You're kind of extending that gap to kind of like, almost sort of 7 points potentially between you and where you're looking at, even in 7th position. Is that is that too big of a gap to kind of bridge at this point in the season when you said fixtures are coming thick and fast and, you know, your squad's not there at this moment in time? Is this a must win for Chelsea at St James's Park on Saturday?
I always feel a little bit reticent about saying a game's must win after 12 games of the season, but I think it's a fair point to say that given the fact we've drawn 4 games and lost 4 games, we've left a lot of points on the table already this season. And as I was referring to in terms of qualifying for the Champions League, I don't think we're in a position where we can afford to be dropping points in these sort of matches because, as I was saying, you start dropping points and then suddenly, 10 points off the top 4 suddenly becomes 12, 14, 16 or whatever in a few weeks. And that's virtually insurmountable. You even talk about gap to 7th place. If we were to lose, we go, 7 points behind you, depending on what Brighton and Man United do. The gaps start getting big. So, look, it's a massive game for both clubs, but I suppose in our situation, you'd have to say that this is a much bigger game for Chelsea than it is for Newcastle.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Chris, on that? Is it a big game for Chelsea? Do you agree with Charlie, or do you think we have to win this game? It's a must-win for Newcastle.
Yeah, it's difficult because I think it's a big game for both teams. However, I don't. And I'm going to ask Charlie this in a minute. In fact, get Keith's opinion after mine and then ask Charlie at the MP. But if you offered me a point now, I'd probably take it because, yes, we could do with the 3 points. We don't want to create that gap at the top. And I'm sure Chelsea don't either. But I wouldn't say it's make or break because we both Chelsea and Newcastle will have bigger fish to fry in terms of there's a lot of other fixtures that we look at and go, 3 points, 3 points, 3 points, 3 points. And I think this game is just about not losing because I think if we were to lose, it would really put heads down because obviously, with our top, the 6 clubs above us, if they all start winning, if we start looking at the table and we're going, oh, bloody hell, we're 9 points off top 4, that's quite a chunk. And then obviously in Chelsea's point of view, if we were to win and then those other clubs win and you start going, oh, it's 13 points, 14 points off top 4, it starts to create quite a gap. It's very early on, as Charlie rightly said, we're going to be 13 games in come 5 o'clock on Saturday. We'll look at the table and be like, right, okay, we've played 13 games. We're just over a third of the way through the season, aren't we? So it's not make or break by any stretch, but both clubs will not want to lose, in my opinion. And me personally, if someone said to me now, you don't have to play the game, we'll give you the point, I'd probably take it. Because I think if we lose, it's more the psychological effect more than anything for me. Especially from a Chelsea point of view as well. They've gone on this really good recent run. Fantastic results against Tottenham. Nearly got a really good result against City, but put up a really, good fight. Which is never easy against Man City. So I think Pochettino will look at this game and think, you know what, let's not get beat today, lads. And I think, given the position we're in, Eddie Howe would probably be saying the same thing. We've got bigger fish to fry, and there's more easier games coming up for both teams that we can guarantee wins. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair opinion. Jules has got opinions. We need to gain ground on the 5th. It's 3 points for her, and I think Stu's in agreements for that. Gary V's just put 3 points for me. Wouldn't want to take 1, but no, I completely understand. I can understand both sides of the perspective. It's probably like a must not lose more than anything else. We don't want to be losing at St James's Park. That's for sure. But yeah, that end of questions.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose we're at the end of the questions, but my last question was going to be to Charlie, just to say, Charlie, if we offered you a point now, would you take it, or you want all 3?
I want all 3 for sure, but I don't know. It's a tricky one because we need the points and we need to start going on a run of winning games. I've always said that actually, do you know what? In a weird way, drawing is actually worse than losing. I know that sounds odd, but you could go. But let me explain why though, because you could go 3 games unbeaten, right? You could lose 2 and win 1 and have the same points. So what I
Yeah,
mean
I
is,
see what you mean.
it's the draws that kind of. I don't necessarily think it's the defeats that cost you if you're going for like like whatever you're going for. I think it's more drawing too many games is really the big costly thing. So would I take a point in terms of going to Newcastle and a tough place to go? Yes. But I wouldn't take a point in the circumstances that we need as many points as we can get on the board as quickly as possible. And our next 3 games are you, Brighton, and Man United, all teams above us. This is a big opportunity to close some major ground in the next 3 weeks.
Definitely.
That makes sense.
Just wanted to quickly run through before we get to predictions the fixtures for this weekend. So we'll have a quick look at what the fixtures are looking like. November the 25th. Big one. 12:30. Wow. On Saturday. Just a quick round robin on that big game, and then we'll whip through the rest of them. Keith, we'll start with you. What you thinking? Who's your winners out of Man City and Liverpool?
Man City have got that brilliant home form, haven't they, which stretches back to last season. I think they didn't lose a game last season. If there was going to be a shock, certainly I think it might be this weekend. I think Liverpool are playing that much better. But it could be an away win, a shock away win, especially with Haaland out. But I'm going to tip City. Just maybe a 2-1 to City.
Interesting. Chris, what are your thoughts? Who do you think's winning that big game?
Mate, I am all about Man City in this game. Like, if Liverpool win that game, I'll be devastated. I want to see Man City bounce Liverpool everywhere. So I'm fully going for the Man City home win, and all the lads, all the Reds out there, we were kind of giving it loads to me and saying, "Oh, can't wait for you to come to Anfield, or we're going to batter you." Like, I'm wanting a fully fit squad on New Year's Day, and I'm wanting Liverpool to kind of come down to earth a little bit, because I think they're starting to get a little bit of grandeur in that. I think they think that they're in with a real chance of the title.
This
so
could be their year, Chris. It could be their year again.
Oh, mate, if it's their year, I need to emigrate.
Chris,
I
was
think
it bad
City
enough
will win.
when they won the title last time, but with it in COVID, so there wasn't the parades that could have been.
It was quite good actually, Keith, because they broke the duck and they won the title, during COVID. But it was great because it had like that asterisk next to it, and it was like, yeah, this was COVID season, so it's not really that. And they didn't have the whole title parades, and there were no flag. Well, there were still flags everywhere, but there was no big parade, going on in Liverpool City Centre. So I was quite happy with that actually. So yeah, I fully hope and I fully expect a Man City home win.
Interesting. I'm not going to look at all of the games because we could be here all night, and we're not going to do that. But do you think West Ham are going to bounce back, or do you think Burnley's going to sting West Ham? This is a must-win for West Ham. So, Chris, I'll come to you on this one. Is Lawless going to be crying, or is he going to be telling us he's on a title charge again?
Who knows? He might do. Lawless. This is a tricky one for me because I expect Burnley. I wouldn't touch this game personally if I was having a bet on it, because sooner or later something will click with Burnley, and I think Burnley are going to get a big win, and it will be inevitably be at home. And I look at West Ham and I think, could it be? Because sometimes West Ham can be flaky. Lawless might not like that, but sometimes they can be a bit flaky. And I just wonder whether this is the week where Burnley just turn up and win 2-0, and everyone's like, bloody hell, I didn't see that coming. So if you were pushing me for the result, I'd actually say a Burnley home win.
Interesting. Any other ones that you're interested in? Is odds related that you've seen?
The one for me that stands out.
Go on, Keith,
the one for me that stands out, and the one with real intrigue in terms of how they respond, is the Everton versus Man United game.
Yeah.
Really, because with Man United as well, a few seasons ago under Ole, they choked at Goodison, and it was one of the pivotal games that kept Everton up that season. What's the atmosphere going to be like at Goodison on Sunday? Man United have been a bit flaky this season. How they're going to respond as well. So that is the game that stands out. for me this weekend, in fact.
Yeah, interesting. Chris, you agree, or you got another one?
Yeah. I to be honest, I was looking at Sunday and I was thinking, do you know what? That is a super Sunday. Yeah. That's a fantastic Sunday, that. So I'll be telling the wife that I'll be watching the footy on Sunday. I might give the Brentford Arsenal game a swerve. I might, that's me being, a good husband. I might just go, oh no, I'll leave that, love. We'll watch something on telly because Sunday I'm busy. Because I think those 2 games on Sunday will be really, really good. In terms of betting, I think you'll get a good price on Brighton away to Forest. Brighton have been pretty underwhelming for me the past few weeks, and I don't think Forest are all that. So I think Brighton could turn up and could get a performance. And the reason I'm saying Brighton is because I think, given recent form, I think you'll get a good price on Brighton. I might check that in a minute, actually, but I bet you Brighton have a good price, and they're coming up against a not great Forest team. So Brighton on the day could blow anyone away, as we saw. So I think Brighton will be a good price this weekend.
Interesting. Very interesting. And of course, the most important one of the lot, we'll come back to this. We'll come back to the fixtures in the games going through. I actually think Wolves will beat Fulham.
I agree on that,
yeah, away from home. I think Fulham are right down there. I think they're going to be in a bit of a dogfight this season, in my opinion. But we'll keep on to the fixtures as we go along, and we'll start to wrap it up. But the most important fixture, the one that we all want to know the scores for, is the big one at St James's Park at 3:00 on Saturday. So we'll go round robins. Starting with myself, I'm going to stick with what I said on your channel, on the Blue Brother channel. I think it's going to be a 2-1 Newcastle United win. I'm going to stick with Guns. I'm going to stick with it. I think we're going to do it. 2-1 Newcastle. That's my prediction. Chris, the main man, what are you going for?
Just before I give you my prediction, yeah, it was as predicted. I've looked at the price on Brighton, and Brighton are 23-20 to beat Forest. So you're getting over even money for Brighton to beat Forest, and they're very poor Forest stars. Hey, everyone, you can all shout at me on the review show when I'm wrong, but that would be a good bet for me. I think Brighton to win at 23-20 is a good bet.
If you're that way inclined, put it on, and then we can discuss next week. Yes. Whether we were successful or not. Let's get the train rolling on this.
Tips downloaded back, yeah.
Well,
no 2 tips no 2 tips. This is Chrissy Hall. We'll get a big name. We'll get a big name for him. But we'll throw one of these out every week, and we'll see how it lands.
I'll have to ask Daz for an intro, maybe.
You need them cane like flames, don't you? Let's make the screen go red.
Yeah, just mates everywhere.
Love it.
Okay, so I'll be honest, lads. My gut feeling is a draw. Really, really fair, and I think both sides will be reasonably happy with a draw. So I'm going to stick some Ron Seal on, get on that fence, and I'm going to say 1-1.
1-1. Ooh, interesting. Charlie, the Blue Brothers representing Chelsea Football Club. What you go for, fella? What do you think is going to be at 5:00 Saturday evening or late evening? Late afternoon?
Right. I mean, I went up last season. I'm going up again this season. I'll tell you what, man. I don't want to hear any. Honestly, right? Last year, all I was hearing, even when we went out afterwards, 1-0 to the Saudi boys being chanted everywhere. So, like, if we can just avoid that this season, that'll be great. I mean, I love going up to Newcastle. It's probably my favourite trip of the season. I fancy us just because I always back the team. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a draw or we lost, but I feel confident that we can get a 2-1 and it will make the journey worthwhile. But yeah, I'm gonna stick with what I said earlier. I'm gonna go 2-1, but it could easily be all 3 results. Wouldn't be a surprise either.
Just like we said, Charlie, because we said it's a game that you could see all 3, and we've got Pete saying 2-1 Newcastle, we've got you saying 2-1 Chelsea, and you've got me saying 1-1. So it sounds like Keith that way. Keith is going to be the decider.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be interesting. There could be different outcomes. I definitely think it's going to be hard for both sides to have the injuries. at the moment. I definitely can see a 1-1. I think certainly Charlie's going to have a different experience than he had last time. And last time, it was the game before the Winter World
game before the World Cup, yeah.
Yeah, and I wish we're having a Winter World Cup now, and then maybe Newcastle might have their players back from injury. But I think in this game, even though it might be hard fought, I just think that Chelsea are going to have the edge. It's certainly an attack. Really, I think. I know Isak's back, but it usually takes a few games to get you, to get full into season. Chelsea have been on an upward curve, and they have been better away from home this season. So I think the score will end up. Sadly, I think that'll be the difference. Palmer, Jackson in form. And I think Newcastle will get a goal through Gordon or something like that, unfortunately. Newcastle have just got to get over this difficult spell now that they've lost 2 on the bounce to Borussia Dortmund and then to Bournemouth. They just need to get over this difficult spell and get the players back and get going again.
I feel like up top is Newcastle, at the bottom is Chelsea. What's going on, man?
Pete always looks dead disappointed, like disappointed in his kids when Keith says the opposite and goes, "Oh, mate, really?"
I was hoping for the positive, and my face just dropped when he said that he thought.
I can't help but how I feel about the game. I think
no, you're right.
Chelsea are going to have the edge in attack. That'll be the difference between both sides.
Yeah. That's fair, Keith. Yeah, at the end of the day, mate, you can only say what you believe, and you believe that you think Chelsea win, and you can see why, because obviously we're struggling at the minute with our injuries, and you're right, Isak. I'm hoping he comes back in and he's really, gives it his all.
I want him to hit form and get but if you remember when he came back the last time, as well, last season in January, it sort of took him a bit of time to get back, didn't it? Yeah,
it did. It did.
And 14 of Newcastle's goals this season have came from either Wilson or Isak.
Yeah. I hope you're wrong, Keith. I hope you are wrong.
I'm wrong too, and I hope it's a 1-0 to Newcastle.
Yeah.
Or a 0-0 or a 1-1, where both sides have got points.
Yeah, Charlie was as shocked as you, Pete. It's like, what, really?
Believe it. Charlie shocked in a good way. He had a big
he's in a good way,
yeah.
Absolutely buzzing. Anyway, we've got the predictions out there. They're out there. So we're either going to be praising Keith for his absolute spot on statistics, or we're going to be thankful and relieved that he was wrong, including Keith. He's going to be relieved that he's wrong. Hopefully that is the case. But look, the predictions are out there. The preview is in the bag. There'll be many more to come from Loaded Bag NUFC. And look, just to give you a little preview of what's to come or what's been, because I mentioned at the beginning of the show, at the top of the show, Andy Sixsmith, if you haven't watched that show, go give it a watch. It's a great chat talking about the voting and all things Newcastle United as well, as we delved into who we could potentially sign from Saudi. Not that we're guaranteed to, but who's could be potentially available. So a really good chat. And of course, if you're looking for chat, the main man is back tomorrow night. And he always brings the fireworks. Mr. Sean Casey, Mr. Like I said, we'll be back tomorrow. I believe it's at 8 o'clock tomorrow night. But keep an eye on the social medias for the tweet that goes out. That should be very, very interesting, to say the least. And of course, we have to give a huge thank you to our sponsors. So a huge thank you to the Radiator Shed, Russ and the team. Thank you for all your support with the channel. And of course, they provide top quality materials made from plate steel, providing longevity. All designs are manufactured in Italy, and aluminium rads are not just environmentally friendly and perfect for heat source pumps, but they offer a home survey service as well. And of course, you can see some of those there, and as well in various different colors. And of course, a huge thank you to the bathroom design, H2O, the Northeast's largest suppliers of Villeroy and Botch bathroom wear, Team Valley Gateshead. So make sure you get down to 11th Avenue, Team Valley Estate in Gateshead, and show your support. If you're looking for a bathroom, they are the place to go, as we give Charlie a shower. And we make sure that hopefully he gets washed away on Saturday up in Newcastle. We get the 3 points, but then he has a great night out afterwards. And we make sure we always look after our guests up in Newcastle. So if you see him, even if we take the 3 points, buy him a drink, make him feel welcome. We always do, as we always have done up in Newcastle. And there's some of the bathrooms available and some of the artwork that H2O have provided. Guys, that is it for tonight's preview. Big thanks to Charlie from @BlueBrothersCFC. Where can we find you on socials? And is it the same tag that you've got in your kind of description there, mate?
Yeah, so my YouTube is what's on the screen right now. Also catch me doing stuff on Chelsea Fan TV, and then socials. My Instagram is what's on screen, and then my Twitter is @CharliePatrick0. So yeah, if anyone wants to check that out. But yeah, YouTube, we're almost at 7K now. I think got 40 subs to go. So if anyone wants to subscribe and help me hit that 7K mark, that would be greatly appreciated. But yeah, thanks for having me on, Pete. It's been a pleasure. It's been good fun. Big up to everyone in the chat as well.
Definitely. Look, guys, make sure you go and support Blue Brother YouTube channel. Like I say, they're nearly at 7K. We're on the way to 7K. We're pushing as well up there. So if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, make sure you do. Keith, superb stats as always. I know one or two are calling for a new intro. Maybe Daz will bring the Bond back or something new. I think he's always working in the background. There'll be something popping along very, very shortly. And of course, Mr. Brandy and Blaze, the main man, back in the house as always. Great to have you on, Chris. Yeah, we'll the accumulator I was thinking of as a name, the accumulator. I'm just throwing that out there. The accumulator. We'll put a few odds on in some of those fixtures in the weeks. Definitely. But get your best names in the chat. People that are watching afterwards. What's a great name for Chris to throw out some accumulator?
Are we happy with this? Because I haven't got a clue what names are going to get brought up. Like, I'm assuming some of them won't be very nice. Avon accumulator. I don't know.
I took the Avon out because I didn't know if you want to be still associated with the Avon.
Well, I'm stuck with it anyway, I think, Pete. So I'm trying to embrace it now.
I went for the accumulator. Maybe the Avon accumulator work. Anyway, we will discuss and we'll
think of some names.
Daz is probably working on it already. But guys, it's about that time. And of course, we wrap up the show in the way we always know how. And of course, we do love playing away. Chris, take it away.
How'd you like that?
Drink it, like me, and tell me you like that, like that.